In a win fueled by the defense and special teams, it's only fitting that this week's Spotlight video would focus on
Only
DeMeco
special
Ryans.
teams. No, that's not it? Okay, my bad. Continue.
David tried. He wanted to do this entirely on special teams. 2 plays. He wanted just to be the Hufanga hype train. Jordan Willis, Talanoa Hufanga, he wanted it. But instead, we're going to take a look at DeMeco Ryans' game plan. And I think it's incredible because the Packers are one of the top offenses in the league. They ranked 3rd in EPA per play, and it was a game plan that was predicated on getting creative on 3rd downs. First thing you got to do, get them to 3rd down. And that's going to be the first play after the first 2 drives, because play 1, no 3rd downs. Play 2, no 3rd downs, Warner fumble. Now we get to late in the first quarter. It's a 3rd and 6. It's their very first 3rd down. They're starting to mix things up. They're going to rotate from a single high pre-snap look into cover 6, and they're going to play some man coverage on Adams. It's going to work.
Yeah, so as we kind of let it run here, you get a little feel for, what they're doing, some of the movement and whatnot. But yeah, let's go back, right, and take a look pre-snap. So we're starting in what looks like they're kind of trying to sell this as cover 1, though it's not quite there because they don't have anyone over the inside slot receiver there over to the trip. So you know that something's kind of up and that they're going to be doing something here rather than running kind of their typical cover 1 stuff, right? So you're going to see eventually Jimmy Ward start to back up here, right? Starting to get out. You see Jaquiski Tartt start to move a little bit wider over to his side of the field. And here we go. We finally get to the 2 high shell, right? So this is something, not uncommon for them, but one thing that they did here that is a little bit different that they have only done kind of in certain situations, specific games, is on the 2 side. So again, cover 6, remember, is going to be cover 4 to one side. In this case, that's going to be top of the screen, and then cover 2 down here to the bottom. And the 2 side is usually going to have that cornerback. So Emmanuel Mosley here is going to be playing like a zone cover 2 type thing, right? Where he's just going to be the flat defender, going to try to get a little jam on the receiver there, funnel him up to the safety, and then look to settle into a zone, right? Here, because it's Adams and they have Adams split over to the single receiver side here across from that trips, he actually is going to man up. So they play this like 2-man to that side. So you can see Mosley here getting to this trail technique, right? Getting underneath Adams so that he can basically be there to take away the shorter breaking stuff like he ends up running here. And then you've got Jimmy Ward that's over the top. So you get essentially a high-low on Adams here with the 2-man. And then you get to play, your cover 4 zone to the opposite side over the trips there. And you get the kind of numbers that you're looking for, right? You basically get 4 over 3 to that side of the field. And so, yeah, Rodgers is left. He's initially thinking maybe he's got single coverage with Adams. That turns out to not be the case. Has to look the other way. And at that point, pressure is getting home, right? Flushing him from the pocket. Everybody does a good job here kind of matching up in the scramble drill and has to just kind of heave an incomplete pass.
First of all, no one with the number 49 should be that far downfield getting the pass. unless, 44 maybe. 49, definitely not. One thing to note from this view is the mugged up linebackers. You've got both Greenlaw and Warner over the A-gaps. This is something the Niners did all game. And most of the plays that we're going to see actually have them in that spot. It doesn't become something the Niners actually employ where they send 1 or 2 of those players until very, very late in the game. So even early on, DeMeco Ryans is beginning to set some of those things up. So now we get to the next play. This is in the second quarter. Early in the second quarter, it's 3rd and 8. This is another play where they're disguising. They're going to rotate from a 2-high shell to a 1-high look. And it's going to be more attention on Davante Adams, which is where Aaron Rodgers was trying to hunt.
Yeah, so here, you're getting, pretty typical zone look for them, right? So you've got the 2 high safeties, which, again, they play a lot of quarters and whatnot in these situations in normal situations. So, yeah, you're showing that here pre-snap to Rodgers, and then you're going to rotate after, right? So you get Jaquiski Tartt that's going to be the one to come down and help on Adams. So you get this bracket on Adams here with Tartt and Dante Johnson. And then you get Hufanga, who's going to drop. He doesn't really get really to the middle of the field necessarily, but he becomes what should be your single high safety, right? And then you're getting man coverage everywhere else. So this is going to be rotating from what they want to show as a two high, more zone look to cover one, right? And so this is about as much disguise as they've shown. I mean, you still get a lot of cover one signals there because you see Jimmy Ward traveling with the motion here. You still have all of your eligible receivers that are up on the line of scrimmage, still have somebody directly over them, but certainly isn't as obvious here as like what they typically do in third down situations when they are going to play cover one. So you get a little bit disguise, and then you get the double on Adams. So again, Rodgers looking that direction initially as he's kind of in his drop back here, gets the double team on it. That pretty much eliminates it. And then pressure again is getting home. I mean, you could say maybe he should get it out to that check down that's down there right about the line of scrimmage, because Jimmy Ward gets hung up as he's trying to kind of navigate through this traffic, collides with Cobb there and is a little late getting out. So you've got some space there that maybe you should just dump this off. But Rodgers being Rodgers, he's not quite ready to do that yet with it being third down. And yeah, the pressure gets here. And actually, as we look from the end zone view, it's kind of funny. The pressure from Ebukam actually comes here because he gets chipped. He gets chipped right off the block into Rodgers' lap, essentially.
Yeah, it's pretty good balance for him to basically the last two steps are on his knees.
Yeah.
Like he knees his way over there, which I mean, that's pretty decent athleticism right there to just be like, I'm going to get after it and not get a penalty for going too low. So, he did do a couple of things there, even though he wasn't the most effective pass rusher in the game against Green Bay. But you know what? He got one where it mattered, and it was another third down stop for the 49ers defense. Now we get to the third quarter. It's 7:54 in the quarter, 3rd and 10. This is where they're doing something that they don't do often, a simulated pressure. And remember, a simulated pressure is where you're still rushing 4, but one of those defenders is coming from somewhere else. It looks like a blitz, but it's not really a blitz, which is why it's called the simulated pressure. And in this case, they're sending a corner. It looks like a corner blitz, but they're only rushing 4. They're dropping Nick Bosa, and it's something that they really don't put on tape a lot on another high leverage situation.
Right. I think there's a couple interesting things with this play, right? So you get the sim pressure element, which definitely is, somewhat unusual for them. I've only really gone to it a handful of times this season. And then when you look at kind of the coverage shell behind it, right, they're initially showing here, they show the 2 high look, and they're going to eventually get to a 2 high coverage in cover 2. But they get there in kind of an unusual way. And I think from a setup standpoint here, you're looking at this like I would be expecting if I'm Green Bay and I see this based on the coverages they've shown all season. I'm expecting to get some sort of fire zone, right? I'm expecting to get a cover 3 look here where, I'm going to get probably a safety rotation. I'm probably get Warner bailing out to be my whole player. Just the way that K1 is kind of playing here before he starts creeping back too much. Everything setup wise looks like, I'm going to get a little bit of rotation after the snap and probably into, one of their basic zone pressures. And what you get instead is, again, because you're going to send Johnson down there at the bottom, Jaquiski Tartt's going to actually rotate down. He becomes the flat player in cover 2. And then Jimmy Ward's got to sprint all the way across, right, and get to the deep half on the opposite side of the field from his initial alignment. And then you get K1 finally here, who's going to continue dropping deep and become that other deep half player. So once the rotation's complete, as we look at it here, here's your 2 deep coverage, right? Here's your cover 2, Tampa 2 type thing as Warner continues to run with that seam up the middle of the field. So yeah, just a completely different thing. They don't run even just base cover 2 a whole lot, right? And so to get it to that coverage from an unusual look, definitely, is giving Rodgers something to think about here. And yeah, again, just kind of a little indecisive in terms of where he wants to go. Also good coverage, right? I mean, I think, it's going to be tough to find something right away. I think he's used to the pressure. This is actually one play where the pressure isn't really there super quick, and he probably has a little bit more time in the pocket, but gets a little antsy, dumps it off, and you're able to rally up and make the tackle.
So far in these 3 plays, we've seen the Niners go from basically a 2 high down into a 1 high look, and then from a 1 high into a 2 high look, and now they're going from a too high to a different form of a too high look. They're not giving you the same picture. They're not playing static defense. They're giving Rodgers a lot of different looks to get him to hold the ball just enough to let that pass rush get there. The other thing here, too, is it's another rep where you see both linebackers mugged up in those A gaps. And so we get to now another play. Fourth quarter. Early on in the fourth quarter, it's 3rd and 8. We talked a lot about the Packers being in empty, and they finally do it late in the game. And here they are in empty in the red zone on a pretty critical play. It's 3rd and 8. If they score here, I mean, based on the way the game was going, it could have been over. But instead, K'Waun Williams has a pretty impactful bump, and the pressure gets to Aaron Rodgers, and they have an answer for empty on the few times that the Packers ran it.
Right. So, nothing too exotic compared to what we've seen in the first few plays from a coverage standpoint. This is a pretty base red zone type coverage from them that they run often. And I think, the thing that you get here, right, and this is something we talked about on the podcast, is the lack of empty that Green Bay ran in this game, and then the specific situations they did choose to run it in. So in the first game, when they went to this type of look, they had a lot of success going down the field quickly, right? Getting some of those slot fades where you have a chance to, threaten the field vertically, but still get the ball out of your hand relatively quickly before the pass rush can get there, right? And so in this situation, when you're running it inside the 10, that vertical element's gone, right? You have a very limited amount of real estate that you can work with here. And so that as a defense, right, you're not really worried about covering that type of stuff. And so here, you get that, right, where it kind of just shows the difference in their empty play calling. And then K'Waun, I mean, honestly, not, just kind of fortunate positioning, if anything. I mean, they're trying to kind of sell a double move here with Adams and get him up the middle of the field there into the seam, because you basically clear Warner out in the middle there by having Cobb kind of run that vertical stem initially. So they're kind of wanting to bring Adams underneath him and get that middle of the field shot to him. But K'Waun's right there, right? So as he kind of breaks up the field, makes the contact with him, and then you can see as that's happening, I mean, the pressure's there. So, right, you get the contact with Adams right away. Rodgers has nothing left to do. Like, there's nowhere else for him to go. He can't move to another option, and you get the sack. And another big kind of 3rd down stop for them.
I mean, it's so great to see this defense work so well in concert. Like, it just the way they move, the way they flow, everything is really covered, and that's what you have to do as a zone defense, because you've got to close those windows, you've got to make them tight, and you've got to hold on just long enough in order to let that pressure get there, and that's what the 49ers do, and that gets them all the way to really late in the fourth quarter. Now it's 5:33. We're gonna have 2 back-to-back plays that show very similar looks, and now is when DeMeco Ryans begins to pull the trigger on that mugged up look. So this is going to be a variation of the Kings blitz that we've talked about a lot last season and this season. And these next 2 plays, this one is going to be when the team decides that they're going to maybe go full Josh Norman. And luckily, I mean, I think it's actually kind of ballsy to put Josh Norman out there for a snap and say, you know what? We're still going to blitz. We're going to give him some safety help over the top, but we're still going to blitz, even with Josh Norman there. Maybe because Josh Norman is in there, we're going to go ahead and blitz. But this is a 2nd and 8 play, and there's some adjustments to that kind of regular Kings look.
Right. So I think the first thing you get from an alignment standpoint, that this is not the exact situation we've seen them run this type of pressure from, right? So normally you do get the 3-by-1 look, which is a big element of it, right? So you've got the trips set to the wide side of the field, including the tight end there. You've got a single receiver into the short side of the field. And normally what you would get is the back also aligned to the boundary, right? Aligned to the short side of the field. Here, Jones is actually up on the other side, and so they have to kind of tweak a few things in terms of alignment pre-snap and exactly where this pressure is coming from. And then the second thing that you get, is like you mentioned, the safety help over the top. So rather than getting Tart back to the middle of the field like you would expect in this pressure typically, he's going to really kind of cheat over to Adam's side to help Norman out. And he's not really playing like in a true deep half type of look. He's just wants to be over there, wants to be close by, so that, if you do get a throw that's more vertical down the sideline, which they try to hit here, but they try to throw it a little bit more on a rope, right? He doesn't want to put too much air under it, because if he does, that is exactly what's going to allow Tart to be able to get over there and make a play, right? It gives him that extra time. So they try to go after him. He tries to put it on a line a little bit more, just ends up underthrowing it a bit. And so, yeah, they're going after Norman. They nearly succeed. I mean, Adams gets on top in terms of this route, just don't get the ball placement that you would expect from Rodgers here. And so, yeah, I think this is the first time that they ran it, and then they're going to go back to it right on the next play.
Yeah, and you've got Fred Warner, who is he's running free at this point. I mean, it looks like he's going to go ahead and take a step, and then just, whoop, there it goes, sees part. And if Rodgers doesn't throw that with quick timing, he's going to get wrecked.
Yep.
Like, this is absolutely a place where, yeah, we'll see the sees part here. And, like, that little move, I love this little thing where he just it looks like he's dropping out. Like, he looks back and lets the defender get across his face and stunt to the inside and pull the guard in. And that's what parts everything and lets Warner come in, because he's going to, I mean, and you see Jones over here looking at K'Wan Williams. I mean, it is literally going to be lights out for Aaron Rodgers if he does not get this out right away. It's such a fun little detail from Warner there, but it makes it all that more effective.
The point about Jones too is big, because as he's going to scan inside out, so you can see his eyes initially are going to go to Warner, right here, right after the snap. He's looking inside, but he sees Warner open up and look like he's going to bail out, and now he looks outside, right? So I continue my scan, find my outside rusher, and I'm going to go pick up K'Wan. And yeah, you let actually the closer defender, the defender that has a more direct path to the quarterback, free because of the setup that you get from Warner, which is just, yeah, very good.
And it's something Jones has been seeing all game. He's been seeing the linebackers get mugged up all game, and then they both drop out. They both drop out. They both drop out. So he's just expecting them to drop out again. But this time now, late in the game, they do not drop them out, and Warner gets almost a free shot on Aaron Rodgers. And now we get to the final play in the series. This is later in the fourth quarter, the very, very next play. It's 3rd and 8, and this is their more traditional Kings blitz. Very, very similar look, and you're still going to get pressure coming from a different spot, and this time it gets home.
Right, so you can see the main difference pre-snap, right? So if you remember Jimmy Ward, who now is up on the line of scrimmage, kind of on top of Bosa there. Previously, he had to be kind of over to the trip side, right? Because they had to adjust the way that they're bringing pressure, who exactly was coming. And so, yeah, from an alignment standpoint, you get a little bit of a different look here. But now that you see Jones, on that short side of the field there, this is kind of the more traditional setup that they've run. But the exception being you still get Tart, who is going to cheat over to the Adams side, right? They still have Norman in on this play, still locked up with Adams here. And so you're going to get Jaquiski Tart that's really cheating to help on him rather than getting back to his typical, middle of the field type coverage. And then, yeah, the pressure is big here. I mean, they end up getting essentially a free rusher from Armstead here who gets in really quick. And this is one of those plays where the pressure really kind of makes it, because you get a little bit that's from the setup, right? Because again, Rodgers checking Adams first thing as he's in his drop back here, sees the Tart, is going to be helping out. So that kind of gets him off of it. But he's got this check down here, because the way that they need to pass this off, you only have Warner and K'Wan who are going to be responsible for those two inside receivers, right? And who ends up on who is going to largely depend on what the specific routes they get here. And so as you get this route combination where basically Cobb is going to run vertical and then inside, and then the number 3 receiver, the shorter one there, is going to go outside into the flat, it really should be Warner picking up Cobb as he looks to do, and K'Wan falling off of this and driving on the flat route, which he doesn't do, and he's late. So that's wide open there. If Rodgers can just get this out at all, like, this guy's going to be running easily for a first down on this play, right? But even as Rodgers is trying to just flip it out and do anything, I mean, Armstead's on him and has him down to the ground before he can, do anything about it.
The go-go gadget arms get it in this play, because you don't think that he's that close. And you see Rodgers kind of try to go to that side, and those, oh man, Armstead. It's like it's in the name, arms. It's in the name. But yeah, let's look to see exactly how that free rusher comes through, because it's a completely overloaded over here. I mean, they're bringing one more than they can block, and Armstead is just gonna it's so pretty. It's so pretty. Look at him, just splits the two.
Yeah, they just don't. They don't get the. I mean, they screw up because the slide is wrong, right? So
yeah,
the guard and the tackle here are essentially expecting to be able to pass this off and continue working. So they're expecting that they're going to work to Bosa and then Ward, and that they're going to have help for the inside there. But yeah, just it's going to be tough because even though you put Jones up there, your center can't really do much sliding. Like it's a lot for him to go basically completely across Greenlaw to get to Armstead. You're asking a lot of that center there, and you certainly don't want to leave Armstead free for your back to pick up, right? You never want a situation where you're kind of putting a defensive lineman on a running back. Your protections are never going to be set for that, right? You look to get, it's kind of goes Bob rules. It's big on big and back on backer. That's how you want to be able to set things up. And so, yeah, they just have kind of a miscommunication here with how they're going to block this up. The guard tries to basically go off, and Armstead's able to run free because there's no one there to pick him up.
And that basically does it. I mean, that's 6 plays, 6 beautiful plays. Great calls, high leverage situations. The question that I had was, okay, now you're finally getting them in third down. What was happening on first and second down? We did a quick run of the numbers against the run game, and you had the Niners defense that was only allowing 3.4 yards per carry, only 1 explosive run more than 10 yards down the field, and less than a yard before contact, which we knew going in. I think that was one of the quick hits, right? That the Niners so far this season have allowed basically 1 yard before they made contact. And that held true against the Green Bay Packers, which is what allowed them to force their hand into more high leverage situations. And then once they got into third downs, DeMeco Ryans is like, let's party. Let's go ahead and bring out the exotic stuff and start to confuse Aaron Rodgers. And not even confuse him, because I'm sure these are things that Aaron Rodgers has seen before at times, but it just it made him hesitate long enough for that defensive front to get there, whether it was with a stunt, a blitz, a good individual performance, or Samson Ebukam just getting down on his knees and praying and getting to Aaron Rodgers one way or the other. The Niners defense was able to put it together, and it was one of the best performances against against an offense that was top 3 going into this game.
Right. I think the big thing, if you're going to talk about confusing Rodgers, doing anything like that, it's that you're showing things that you haven't really done, right? So it's things that he's not prepared for. And this has really been true, I think, even going back through Saleh, right? Even as they got more complex with what they're doing on the back end, they don't really disguise a lot. So they will rotate safeties, but it's typically in like a fairly predictable way, right? So it's not like a big, I think the difference is, right, looking at these plays that we saw here, that's some more true disguise, right? You're making the defense think that you're in one thing pre-snap, and then you're rotating to something completely different. And a lot of times to something that you haven't done yet this season. And so that's going to be enough that Rodgers just isn't prepared to see that in this game, and it gets him to hesitate enough, right? And that's what gets your pressure home. So that's all you need to do in a situation like this, where you feel good about your defensive line, you feel good about your pressure packages, you know that those guys are going to get home eventually. If you can make him freeze for just a moment on that first read and not let him get the ball out of his hands quickly, that's it. And then and what we saw here, right, is the pressure getting home and coming up with these big stops.
And that's what fueled the win for the 49ers. That's why they are in the NFC Championship game. That's why they are going to Levi's South. Their second home. They're home away from home in order to face the LA Rams. That does it for the Patreon video. That was a fun one. Like, DeMeco Ryans put some good stuff on film, man. That was a lot of fun. Thanks for the beer. Thanks for everyone who bought one on the Patreon. And as always, go Niners.